This basically walks you through how to create the unique figure that you found in Project One. Um, you have to basically use the template that it provides you and then modify it in order to get it to do what you want. You have to modify the axes, and you also have to eliminate the data so that you can put your own in. We're going to use the bar chart. And there's a few things we have to do to modify this in order to get it look like the chart from the Medilabs experiment, and to get it into APA style. So one of the things we have to do, for instance, is to basically get rid of the bars, because we're going to be adding our own figures within this to mark where the effect sizes are. I'm just going to drag this over and get rid of the data. While you're here, you can also provide the labels. So for example, if you just were looking at the retrospective gambler's fallacy, you would just have a single category and drag it up here. If you were doing anchoring, you'd have 4 categories, and then you'd label them accordingly. Checking, direct the label right. Yep. All right, and then we have a few different categories to provide. And in the figure, it's sorted these by the size of the effect. You can imagine you do something similar. For now, I'm just going to put the 4 Chicago as labeled in the Medilabs figure. And all right. So this is looking a little bit more like it should. Let's go ahead and get rid of things we don't need. We don't need this. We don't need this. Let's modify this range down here in order to reflect the effect size range that we want. You simply right click. Oh, we need to make sure it's the axis. There we go. So for axis options, there we go. We would ask it to have a minimum of -1, a maximum of 3, with a major unit of 1. And that will get it to read like you want to for the x-axis. You might notice that now the labeling is a little weird over here. There's a quick way to adjust that I've discovered. If you click on this and right-click it to format that axis, then you can ask it for its specific label and adjust this to low, and then it'll shift it over. One of the things that I found as I've been fiddling. That's another key thing. You just got to fiddle sometimes in order to get it to bend to your will and get it to work the way you want. You can also adjust the font size if you want. I think this is probably just fine. But if you wanted to, you could do that. You can also adjust the spacing by moving it up and down. Another thing we have to do while we're here is we need to add a label. So you go to Add Chart Element and add a primary horizontal label. And then I believe, I'm just checking my work. Oh, I've made all sorts of example figures. Standardized mean difference. is the label that we want. So we're going to put that here. And bold it. That's already looking fairly good. Oh, I need to bold this last part too. All right. So we are making our way. Another thing we need to do is eliminate the box around the figure. It's not typical in APA style to have boxes around figures. So if you go to chart options, you want there to be format chart area. No fill. Nope, that's not quite what I want. That's for the text. The border, that's what I want. Border, no line. There we go. That is a little bit more like I want it to look like. The last things we have to do is to add the figure title and then to add the markers for our effect sizes. So we're nearly there. The figure title is like every other piece of your paper. It's in Times New Roman 12-point font, and it's below the figure instead of above it. Here's how you make it in APA style. Something that's informative. This is probably a little bit too long, but it definitely spells out what the figure is. And then you italicize figure 1. Keep in mind that this figure goes on its very own page in your document. So you would put this last in your paper after your references, just as a general note. Okay, next what we have to do is figure out what we're doing to mark the effect sizes along this axis. Once again, as similar as we can get it to the Many-Lab, so it's a good comparable figure. We need to come up with a legend, and then we need to put our markers in. And the thing is that Word doesn't do this for us. It just creates bars. It's really good at that, but it's not really good at what we want to do, so we have to basically create our own. So the way that I would do this is I would create a legend by inserting a text box. Ooh, come on, text box, work with me here. There we go. That's a great start. And I'd make that my legend. Now there are 3 different things I want to mark. I want to mark Many-Labs. I want to mark original study, and I want to mark current study. So I'm going to go ahead and put those here. I could do all sorts of things in terms of fiddling with the font and the spacing. I might reduce the spacing just to make it a little bit less. There we go. And then what I have to do is I have to add in my symbols that I'm going to use in order to mark what these different things are. And I suggest using insert shapes. There's several different shapes that you can use. I'm a fan of just things that stand out a little bit more, so I want to use a cross, multiplication sign for the original study, which was the way that it was in the Many-Labs project. And you just kind of put it in to your figure, make it the appropriate size. You can totally change the color. It's typical in APA style to have it be grayscale or black and white. So I'm going to go ahead and change it black. But you can have it be in color like it is in the Many Labs original figure. You could totally make it that way. I'm going to adjust it so it's a little bit less chunky. All right, so this is going to be the marker I'm going to use for the original study. So once you have that particular symbol, you can put it in the legend, you can copy it using Control-C, and then paste it, and move it in order to reflect your figure. I am copying where the effect size fell in the original Many Labs figure for the original study. They put their effects as follows, right there. And you can imagine that you would be replicating 90% of the Many Labs figure, and then you'd be adding in our effect size. All right, next I'm going to create one for Many Labs. Let's go ahead and do a diamond, why not? Make sure it's an appropriate size. I'm going to once again make mine black and white. Because that's what I'm used to for APA style. But you could also put it once again in color. And I'm going to move this over here into my legend. You can see how you have to get creative when it comes to figure creation, when the figure itself is not necessarily something that is automatically a template. They might have had a template that they used in order to create their figure. We don't really have that luxury. Okay, so if you look, once again, I've gotten a lot of random practice in creating figures. Here we go. This is what they had, once again, for babies over here. Once again, I'm just using Control-C and Control-V to copy and paste. There we go. And then the last one. So these were the effect sizes that they found. You're going to have to compute Cohen's d in order to be able to fill in this particular part for the current study. I don't know what these effect sizes are yet because I haven't calculated them yet either. But you can imagine that you would be putting in a marker. Let's use a circle for our study. And you'd want to put it wherever it falls. So for example, if you calculate the effect size and it's 2, for this one you put it right here. And that would end up with a fairly good replication using Word of the Many Labs figure. Once again, inserting in our own data and providing a very clear comparison between the Many Labs, the original study, and our study. So once again, you kind of have to fiddle and massage it in order to get it to do what you want it to do. But I would say that you would end up with a fairly decent APA style figure if you went through these steps, and that once again, it would be as close as possible to the original figure 1 from the Many Labs project. We're going to go through how to create a little bit easier figures later this semester that you might use for your study, using bar graphs and line graphs. That's going to be a lot more similar to the sort of figures that I usually create for my studies. But for now, I wanted to show you how you make something a little bit more complicated using all these different steps.